My name is David Mitchell, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I loved my wife completely. Every dollar I spent, every sacrifice I made, every moment I devoted to her happiness, it all came from genuine love. That's what makes what happened so much harder to bear. I met Sarah 2 years ago at a coffee shop downtown. Tuesday morning, 8:47 a.m. I remember because I'd just closed a major investment deal and was treating myself to an overpriced latte. She was at the counter, fumbling through her purse, her cheeks flushing pink as she whispered to the barista that she'd forgotten her wallet. The line behind her was growing impatient. Without thinking, I stepped forward and handed over my card. "Please, allow me," I said. The relief in her green eyes was immediate. "Oh God, thank you so much. I'm so embarrassed. Can I Venmo you?" she asked breathlessly. "Don't worry about it. Consider it my good deed for the day," I replied with a smile. She insisted on sitting with me while I drank my coffee, and those 15 minutes turned into 2 hours. Sarah was everything I'd never known I wanted. Spontaneous, where I was methodical, artistic, where I was analytical, warm, where I'd grown cold from years of corporate climbing. 6 months later, I proposed with a ring that cost 3 months' salary. A year after that, I bought us a house in Westfield. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, paid in cash from my investment portfolio. "You don't have to work," I told her after our honeymoon. "I make more than enough for both of us. Focus on your art, on making our house a home." She'd kissed me then, called me her guardian angel. That was 11 months ago. Tonight, I arrived home at 7:23 p.m., later than usual due to a client emergency. The house was dark, not even the porch light on. Sarah always left the porch light on. "Sarah?" I called out, setting my briefcase by the door. "Honey?" The silence that answered felt wrong, dense. Our dinner sat on the kitchen counter. Chicken. Marsala, my favorite. Completely cold. The oven was off. The wine bottle she'd opened sat with only 1 glass poured, untouched. I moved through our house methodically. Living room, empty. Her current painting half finished on the easel. Master bedroom. Bed still made from this morning, her yoga mat rolled in the corner. Guest rooms, untouched. Her car wasn't in the garage. My calls went straight to voicemail. "Hi, this is Sarah. Leave some love," her recorded voice chirped. I texted, "Where are you? Getting worried." Then, "Sarah, please call me." Then, "I'm really concerned now. Just let me know you're okay." I called her mother in Ohio. "No, David, we haven't heard from her since Sunday. Is everything all right?" She responded with concern. Her best friend Lisa hadn't seen her since their lunch date yesterday. Her sister, in California, was equally clueless. With each call, the knot in my stomach tightened. I knew my wife's routines like a symphony. 7 a.m. yoga in our home gym, 8:30 a.m. shower with that lavender body wash, 10 a.m. painting time, 2 p.m. shopping or errands, 4 p.m. start dinner, 6 p.m. her evening bath with a glass of wine and whatever novel she was reading. I paid attention because I cared, because knowing her patterns meant knowing how to make her happy. I searched for signs of packing. Her clothes hung perfectly organized, by color, just how she liked them. Her jewelry box sat on the vanity, everything in place. Her suitcase remained in the closet. Even her toothbrush stood in its holder. Something glinted behind her jewelry box. I pulled out a business card. Morrison and Associates, Family Law. The appointment reminder on the back was dated 3 weeks ago. My hands shook as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher answered. My wife is missing. She's never done this before. Something's wrong, I said urgently. How long has she been missing, sir? She asked. I looked at the cold dinner, the untouched wine, the business card in my trembling hand. I don't know, but something is very, very wrong, I replied. Detectives Rivera and Jonathan arrived within 2 hours. Rivera was older, graying at the temples with tired eyes that had seen too much. Jonathan looked younger, sharper, like she had something to prove. They sat across from me at my dining room table, notebooks out, recording device between us. "Mr. Mitchell," Rivera began, "tell us about your relationship with your wife." "We're happy," I said automatically. "We love each other. This isn't like her at all." "When did you last see her?" Jonathan asked directly. "This morning, around 6:45. I left for work early, had a 7:30 meeting with a client. She was still in bed, but she kissed me goodbye like always," I answered. "Any recent arguments?" Rivera inquired, his pen hovering over his notepad. "No, nothing. We rarely fight. I mean, small things sometimes. She thinks I work too much. I wish she'd be more careful with spending. But nothing serious," I replied honestly. Jonathan and Rivera exchanged glances. "Mr. Mitchell," Jonathan said slowly, "we need to ask some difficult questions. Has your wife seemed distant lately? Any changes in behavior?" I thought back. "She's been maybe a little distracted. She started asking questions about our finances a few weeks ago. Wanted to understand our investments, our assets. I thought it was good she was taking an interest," I explained. "Has she ever mentioned someone named Stephen Grant?" Rivera asked. Pointedly, the name meant nothing to me. "No. Who is that?" I responded with confusion. Rivera slid a photograph across the table. It was from a security camera, grainy but clear enough. Sarah, my Sarah, kissing a man outside a restaurant I'd never taken her to. The timestamp showed 2 weeks ago, 1:30 p.m., when she told me she was shopping for new curtains. That can't be. The words died in my throat. "Phone records show your wife has been in regular contact with Mr. Webb for approximately 4 months, Jonathan stated matter-of-factly, producing a printed log. "Daily calls often lasting over an hour, text messages numbering in the thousands. Each word felt like a physical blow." Rivera pulled out his tablet, swiping through screenshots. "These are from Mr. Webb's social media posted over the last 3 months, he explained. Sarah at a concert, her hand in his. Sarah laughing at some winery I'd never heard of. Sarah in a hotel room, wearing lingerie I'd never seen, the photo, carefully cropped but the implication clear. "I think I'm going to be sick," I managed to say. "There's more," Jonathan said, not unkindly. "We've spoken to some of your wife's friends. We have copies of text messages she sent them." She began reading. From her phone. "David's too dumb to notice anything. I could disappear for days and he'd just think I was at yoga." She continued. "My walking wallet comes home tonight. Time to play loving wife again." Then another. "Stephen makes me feel alive. David just makes me feel funded." My vision blurred. This couldn't be Sarah. Not my Sarah who cried at romantic comedies, who left me love notes in my briefcase, "This one's from last week," Rivera interjected. Reading from his notes. "If I divorce him, I get the house and half of everything. He was too trusting to protect himself. No prenup, the idiot." "We've confirmed she met with a divorce attorney," Jonathan added. "Morrison and Associates. She was calculating her settlement value. With the house, your business assets, investment accounts, and retirement funds, she stood to receive approximately $400,000. Her friend Lisa reported that Sarah said she was waiting for the right moment to leave," Rivera continued. "She and Mr. Webb were apparently planning to start fresh together with your money." I stared at the business card I'd found, understanding flooding through me like ice water. "You think I found out? You think I did something to her?" I said quietly. "Did?" "You?" Jonathan asked directly. "No! I had no idea about any of this until right now. I loved my wife. I thought she loved me," I protested. "Mr. Mitchell," Rivera leaned forward. "Neighbors reported hearing raised voices from your home the night before Sarah disappeared. Can you explain that?" The night before? That's impossible. I was home with Sarah all evening. We watched Netflix and went to bed early. "No arguments," I insisted. "And last night, "Where were you last night when Sarah disappeared?" he pressed. "I was at my company's annual investor event from 6 p.m. until after midnight. 300 people saw me there," I answered confidently. "We'll need to verify that," Jonathan stated, making notes. "Please do. Check everything. I have nothing to hide," I said firmly. But even as I said it, I could see how it looked. Betrayed husband, financial motive for murder, her planning to take everything. "Where did her phone last ping?" I asked. Rivera hesitated before answering. "Near the old Brennan Quarry, about 40 miles north. Interestingly, your company just completed a project in that area, didn't it?" The walls felt like they were closing in. Every piece of evidence pointed to me. The cuckolded husband who'd discovered his wife's affair and her plan to destroy him financially. The husband with means, motive, and now, seemingly, opportunity. "I want a lawyer," I said quietly. Rivera nodded, closing his notebook. "That's probably wise, Mr. Mitchell. Don't leave town," he advised. The next 3 weeks were hell. My lawyer, James Brennan, was excellent but expensive, $500 an hour to defend me against suspicions that grew stronger by the day. The investigation had intensified, and Detective Rivera seemed particularly convinced of my guilt. "Your neighbors, the Pattersons, now claim they heard arguing from your house the night Sarah disappeared," Rivera told me during another interrogation. "They're prepared to testify." "That's impossible," I insisted, Brennan's hand on my arm, warning me to stay calm. "I was at the Riverside Hotel with 300 witnesses." "Funny thing about that," Jonathan interjected, "security footage from the gas station 2 miles from the quarry shows your car there at 5:47 p.m. You didn't arrive at your event until 6:15. That's a tight window, Mr. Mitchell." "I needed gas. Is that a crime?" I responded defensively. "When your wife's phone dies, in that exact area at 5:52 p.m.? "It's certainly interesting," she replied skeptically. The media had gotten hold of the story. "Jealous husband prime suspect in wife's disappearance," ran across the evening news. Sarah's family, who I'd supported, who I'd welcomed into my home, gave interviews painting me as controlling, possessive. Her sister claimed I'd isolated Sarah from her family, though I'd paid for their flights to visit 4 times in the past year. But the worst revelations came from Stephen Grant's friends. They seemed to take pleasure in destroying me, revealing every humiliating detail of Sarah's betrayal. "She called him her puppy dog," one of them told investigators. His statement later leaked to the press. "Said he'd do anything she asked, buy anything she wanted. She was laughing about how she'd convinced him to buy a $400,000 house in cash so it would be a marital asset." Sarah's hairdresser came forward. "She told me she was playing the long game. Stay married just long enough to establish lifestyle. Expectations for alimony. She said David was so boring she had to think about Stephen just to kiss him goodnight." Each revelation cut deeper. The woman I'd cherished had seen me as nothing but a mark, a fool to be fleeced. The investigative file, parts of which Brennan managed to obtain, painted a picture of systematic deception. Sarah had been moving money slowly, opening accounts I didn't know about, preparing for her exit. "But here's what they don't have," Brennan told me, spreading files across his conference table. "Physical evidence. No body, no crime scene, no witnesses to any actual crime. And most importantly, you have an alibi they can't break." He was right. The investigation had uncovered my stop at the gas station, yes, but the quarry was another 15 minutes away. For me to have killed both Sarah and Stephen, disposed of their bodies, and made it to the investor event by 6:15 would have required superhuman speed and efficiency. "The Riverside Hotel security footage is your salvation," Brennan explained. "You're on camera arriving at 6:15, mingling by 6:20. You gave a speech at 7:30. You're in the background of dozens of photos throughout the night. The CEO of Franklin Investments personally remembers discussing the Singapore expansion with you. Around 8 p.m., you didn't leave until 12:30 a.m., again on camera. The forensics team found nothing at the quarry despite extensive searching. No blood, no signs of struggle, no bodies. Sarah's car was discovered at the airport's long-term parking, tagged from the day she disappeared. Security footage showed a figure in a hoodie and sunglasses parking it, but the image was too distorted for identification. "They're theorizing you hired someone," Brennan told me after another police interview. "But that's desperation talking. They've subpoenaed your financial records, your phone records, everything. There's no evidence of any large cash withdrawals, no suspicious contacts, nothing." Detective Rivera made one last attempt, bringing me in for what would be the final official interrogation. "I know you did it," he said, off the record while Jonathan was getting coffee. "You're smart, I'll give you that. But you found out about the affair, about her plan to take you for everything, and you snapped. It's understandable. Any man would be angry." "I didn't know," I said quietly. "Not until you told me." "Your web history shows otherwise. You searched for Stephen Grant 3 weeks before Sarah disappeared," he countered. My lawyer interjected immediately. "That search was performed from an ICS IP address at a public library. Anyone could have done that search, and, conveniently, it frames my client. Without proof it was him at that terminal, it's meaningless," Brennan stated firmly. Rivera's jaw clenched. He knew Brennan was right. After 12 weeks of investigation, the case went cold. Without bodies, without physical evidence, without any crack in my alibi, they had nothing but suspicion and circumstantial evidence. The district attorney declined to prosecute. "You're a free man," Brennan told me, shaking my hand. "But I'd recommend keeping a low profile. The court of public opinion has already convicted you." He was right. Neighbors crossed the street when they saw me coming. Sarah's family had filed a civil suit, trying to prevent me from accessing her, life insurance, or any of our joint assets. The whispers followed me everywhere. "There goes David Mitchell, the man who got away with murder." But legally, I was untouchable. As I left the police station for the last time, I caught my reflection in the glass doors. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and I saw myself as I really was. Not the grieving husband, not the betrayed fool, but something else entirely. Something much colder, something that had been there all along. 6 months. That's how long. The case has been cold. 6 months of freedom, of carefully maintained grief, of playing the victim so perfectly that even some of the doubters have started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I really am innocent. I sit in my study now, in the house. That's entirely mine, sipping a glass of the wine Sarah never got to drink that night. It's time you knew the truth, all of it. I knew about Stephen Grant long before the police told me. I'd known for 4 months before Sarah disappeared. The first clue was a receipt in her jacket pocket, lunch for 2 at a restaurant she'd said she'd gone to with Lisa. But Lisa had posted on Instagram that same day from her office, complaining about working through lunch. After that, I paid attention differently. I installed tracking software on her phone during one of her wine-heavy evenings, cloning it to monitor her messages and location. I placed a voice-activated recorder in her car. I watched, I listened, and I learned everything. I knew about every meeting with Stephen, every lie she told me, every cruel thing she said about me to her friends. I knew about the divorce attorney, the financial planning, her timeline for leaving. She planned to wait until after my company's merger went through, another 6 months, to maximize her settlement. The hardest part wasn't discovering the affair. It was maintaining the facade of ignorance. Coming home each night, kissing the woman who called me her walking wallet, pretending to believe her lies about shopping trips, and yoga classes, listening to her fake orgasms while knowing she was thinking of Stephen, playing the devoted fool while she and her lover planned to destroy me. But I'm nothing if not patient, methodical. I'd built my wealth through careful planning and perfect execution. This would be no different. The corporate event wasn't originally scheduled for that night. I'd convinced the board to move it, citing venue availability. I needed that alibi to be ironclad, public, Documented. 300 witnesses to place me nowhere near Sarah when she disappeared. The gas station stop was calculated. I knew they'd check cameras along any route to the quarry, so I stopped at the one that would put me in the area but give me an impossibly tight timeline. 15 minutes to drive to the quarry, kill 2 people, hide bodies, and return. No prosecutor would risk that argument. Here's what really happened that night. I left work at 4:30 p.m. earlier than I'd told anyone. I drove to the abandoned warehouse on Timber Road, a property my company had surveyed months ago but rejected for development. Sarah and Stephen were already there, lured by messages I'd sent from a spoofed number promising each that the other had a romantic surprise planned. They arrived separately, confusion turning to fear when they saw me step out of the shadows. Not the pathetic David they'd mocked, but someone else. Someone who'd been wearing a mask for months while planning every detail of this moment. "Hello, Sarah," I said calmly. "Stephen." Sarah tried to lie, to manipulate, to cry. Stephen tried to run, then to fight. Neither strategy worked. I'd come prepared. Plastic sheeting, tools, a plan refined through months of preparation. I won't describe the details. Some things should remain unspoken. But I will say this. They understood in those final moments that the fool they'd mocked had never existed, that they'd been the marks all along. The bodies went into construction-grade barrels I'd filled with lye, stored weeks ago in a storage unit rented under a false name, paid in cash. The quarry was misdirection. I'd made sure to drive Sarah's phone there, turned it on just long enough to ping the tower at 5:52 p.m., then destroyed it completely. Her car went to the airport immediately after. I'd worn the hoodie and sunglasses, changed my gait, made myself unrecognizable. By 6:10 p.m., I was pulling into the Riverside Hotel, not a speck of blood on me, my car cleaned with bleach wipes I later burned. I made it to the gas station at 5:47 p.m. specifically to create that impossible timeline. How could I dispose of 2 bodies and still make a public appearance by 6:15? The speech I gave that night about investment opportunities was one of my best. I mingled, I laughed, I drank champagne while Sarah and Stephen dissolved into nothing. The storage unit was cleaned out a month later when the rental expired. The barrels had already been moved, their contents dispersed into industrial waste systems across 3 states during my grieving business trips. There's nothing left of them but memories and the money they'll never touch. The life insurance. Paid out last week, $250,000. Sarah's family's civil suit failed. Without a body, she's merely missing, not dead. In 7 years, I can have her declared legally dead and access the rest. But I'm in no hurry. I have everything I need. The investigation was almost amusing to watch. Rivera was so close yet so far. He sensed the truth but could never prove it. The neighbors who heard arguing, power of suggestion, after police asked if they'd heard anything, suddenly they remembered raised voices. The library computer search for Stephen Grant? I did make that search, wearing gloves, knowing they'd find it and it would seem like sloppy planning inconsistent with the otherwise perfect crime. Every piece of evidence they found was either planted by me or anticipated and accounted for. I'd studied forensics, procedure, precedent. I'd gamed out every scenario, every investigation path. I'd built in multiple levels of misdirection and reasonable doubt. The best part? Everyone knows I did it, but no one can prove it. I've become urban legend, cocktail party gossip, a cautionary tale told in whispers. The man who killed his cheating wife and got away with it. They're right, of course. But being right and proving it are very different things. 1 year later. The hostess at Chez Laurent knows me now, always has my regular table ready. The one. In the corner where Sarah and I used to celebrate anniversaries. Tonight, I'm here with Jennifer, a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a laugh that's nothing like Sarah's. "I'm sorry about your wife," she said on our first date, as everyone does. "It must be so hard, not knowing what happened." "The not knowing is the worst part," I replied, the practiced sadness perfect in my voice. but I've learned to live with it, to move forward. Sarah's family still sends threatening letters through their lawyer. Her sister posts on social media about justice and karma. But the posts get less frequent, the anger fading to resignation. Time heals all wounds, even those of suspicion. My business has thrived. There's something about tragedy that makes people trust you. The wounded bird effect, my therapist calls it. Clients feel safe with someone who's suffered, who's survived. My assets have doubled this year alone. The insurance money was invested. Wisely, tech stocks that have soared, real estate in up-and-coming neighborhoods. Sarah would have wasted it on designer bags and spa treatments. Instead, it's working, growing, building the empire she tried to steal. You're different from how I expected, Jennifer says over dessert, her hand finding mine across the table. Sarah's friend said you were cold, controlling, but you're nothing like that. Grief changes people, I tell her. It taught me what really matters: trust, honesty, appreciation for every moment. She squeezes my hand, moved by my apparent vulnerability. She doesn't know about the prenup already drafted in my desk drawer, the background check I ran before our first date, the GPS tracker. I'll eventually suggest she keep in her purse for safety. I've learned from my mistakes. Sarah taught me that love without verification is just vulnerability. Trust without surveillance is just naivety. The next Mrs. Mitchell will be everything Sarah wasn't: faithful, grateful, and carefully monitored. The maitre d' stops by our table. Mr. Mitchell, so wonderful to see you moving forward. Your wife would want you to be happy, he comments warmly. Thank you, Philippe. I like to think she's at peace wherever she is. I respond graciously. Jennifer tears up at this, touched by my grace. She doesn't catch the slight emphasis on wherever she is, doesn't know that Sarah is everywhere and nowhere, dissolved, dispersed, disappeared. 40 miles north, the quarry has been filled in for a new development, one my company won the A bid for. In a twist of irony that would make Sarah laugh, it's going to be a luxury shopping center. After dinner, I drive Jennifer home, playing the gentleman, not pushing for more than a goodnight kiss. I've learned patience. In 6 months, she'll move in. In a year, we'll be married. This time, everything will be properly documented, legally protected, carefully controlled. As I drive home alone, I pass the coffee shop where I met Sarah. They've changed the name, but I still remember standing at that counter watching her fumble for her wallet. Even then, I'd known she was performing. Her cards were in her pocket, but she'd seen my Rolex, my suit, the Mercedes keys in my hand. She'd played the damsel, and I'd played the hero, both of us acting out roles in a script we thought we were writing. The difference is, I was the better actor, and I knew how the story would end. Back home, I pour myself a scotch and stand in my study, looking at our wedding photo still displayed on the shelf. I keep it there for appearances, the grieving widower who can't let go. Visitors find it touching. Sarah smiles from the frame, radiant in white lace and lies. You were right about one thing, I tell her picture. I was too trusting, too dumb. But I learned, Sarah. I learned from the best. Tomorrow, I have therapy at 10. Dr. Morrison is helping me process my grief. At 2, lunch with Sarah's mother, who's finally starting to accept that her daughter simply ran off with her lover, abandoning everyone. At 4, another date with Jennifer. Life goes on. It always does for the survivors. And I'm nothing if not a survivor. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, So click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.